looking good. Not me, the sub base. This sub base is being compacted at intervals, at levels, no more than 3 inches, and we've compacted it. And the reason for that is you're going to maximize your compaction. It's as simple as that. There's no other way of looking at it. Probably the best tip I can actually give, if I was giving a tip to somebody about sub bases, is do we use a geotextile underlay? Well, it's not always necessarily required, simply because in this situation is not unstable ground. We have a modern build here, and this build itself was actually built on a raft, and all the way around the property there is copious amounts of sub base, because on these developments they have copious amounts of recycled sub base, MOT. It's there, it's available, and they need access to them around the back of these houses with the telehandler. And because of that, there's loads of sub base, and we've made up, and we haven't just relied on the sub base that's below. We've actually pulled it around, we've whacked it, and then we've leveled it off again, then whacked it again, and that will ensure maximum compaction. Because what you see all too often is sub base that hasn't been compacted correctly. You'll see people putting it in at 6, maybe 8 inches, then whackering it, compacting it just one time, and that's not a good thing, because what will happen eventually is the stone will start to unbind. You get movement in the ground through ground heave and ground swell, and eventually your sub base will be unstable, and then your bedding mortar will start moving around through water and water ingress. And I'm going to get onto this again in the future, Tom, where we look at water ingress. How does the water get down below? And it gets down through the joints. So what you need to do is you need to reduce your joint size. Now we're using a calibrated product on here, an Egyptian limestone. It's 20 mil, and it's almost like a porcelain product. Now that porcelain product, we see it's almost like tiling on the inside, and you'll see that people are laying 10 mil joints, which is far too big, and we've got it down to a 5 mil joint because we feel that we can get enough grout down in the joint. But I really feel that we can get this down to a 3 mil joint. A 3 mil joint will allow us to get the grout down into the joint reasonably well, and also what it will do, it will give enough thickness in the joint, but also it will stop water ingression, because you're reducing the size of your grout line. And your grout line has, certainly with the grout system we use a Mapai product. It's a cementitious grout, and it's a breathable grout product, because the grout line needs to breathe. What we don't want to be doing is we don't want to be using any of those resin products, because it almost stops the joint breathing, okay? But we're trying to reduce the amount of water ingress, and we're trying to get the water off to the surface as quickly as possible, but we don't necessarily want to lay too much on the floor. And sometimes I think we look at the British standard of it as a 1 in 60 is probably a little bit too much. As long as we can get the water and it doesn't sit, it doesn't pull on the surface, it should be okay. The other thing that I want to talk about again in the future is, I think the R11 rating is come into question, and I'll explain that to you later. The R11 basically is, the rating is given in because they do this thing called a ramp test, where somebody is in an harness and they walk on a ramp, and they change the ramp at certain angles just to test how slippy it is. And I just think that that's a poor test, because there is a test out there called the pendulum test. And the pendulum test is where an object is swung almost like a grandfather clock, where it swings backwards and forwards, and it tests the friction in different materials on the surface of the paving. And what happens is when the pendulum strikes the surface, the friction then will slow the pendulum down, and it's measured that it's more accurate, and it's actually recognized by the health and safety executive. They recognize that this is probably the better test, and it's been proven in court as well. Like, so anyway, sub bases, do we need an underlay? Not necessarily always the case. Compact it at intervals, so important. And that, you know, when you've compacted enough is when your compactor plate, and I've said this so many times, when it starts bouncing. So look, if you need any advice or any support or any help in any way, just drop us an email, info@greentoplandscapes.co.uk, or give us a call on 07795 595 994. You'll get straight through to me. It's a dry day today, so we're going to crack on. Have a great day.